What's up, Titans fans, and welcome to another episode of Titans Global Podcast. I am your host, Maximus Titan Fan, and with me, as always, is my good buddy Link. What's up, dude?
What's going on? Good to see everybody. Glad to be back. Finally got some Titans football to discuss. We saw them in some action, so we want y'all to like, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, we want you to comment. Get in on the conversation. A lot to go over tonight. We want to know your thoughts. Agree with us, disagree with us. So let's see what you think and get into it.
Absolutely, and we're just basically going to break right down into it. We're going to go over pretty much all the action, and to be honest, there was a lot more than I thought when I watched the game with my eye test. It was like, that's not bad, it's not terrible. I'm pretty happy with that, but then I started looking at the stats, man, and I had to be more and more impressed with the more I looked at it, to be honest. Man, 19 first downs, dude. I don't know when the last time we got 19 first downs was.
Yeah.
That's sad. I actually tried to look, and I got I don't know, it was like 17 or 18 games back, and I was like, screw it, man. I ain't even going to look anymore. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But third down efficiency, 9 of 17.
Yep.
I mean, are you... And the other team's third down efficiency was 4 of 11.
Mm-hmm.
Our defense looked good, but not great. And why is that? Because our starting two corners wasn't playing.
Yeah, starting
so
two
that's
corners.
What our defense... Oh, go ahead.
No. I was going to say starting two corners and also up front. Sweat was good, but he was eating up a lot of double teams. That line looks a whole lot different. I know people are complaining about not getting penetration. I mean, I myself was sitting here. I think I actually texted you and I was like, hey, where's the penetration? But then you got to realize, Sweat's getting double teamed. Landry's not there. Simmons is not there. That line is going to look a whole lot different come week one. And we're not going to see a lot of the blitz packages come early preseason. Most of that stuff they're going to save for regular season. So, all around it was good play. Could have been a little bit better, obviously, but that push is going to get a whole lot better before the regular season starts.
Yeah, man. And one of the things that I didn't even hit on this, but in my original intentions, but I have to say I saw it on the game twice. Key peeled off his initial blocker and tackled the running back twice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge improvement for Arden Key, man. So I'm happy for him. I really hope, like you said, once we get Simmons and Landry back in the starting lineup, that this defensive line is going to look a lot different, folks. Yep. It just is. So, but Jalen Harrell had a good game too. It's hard not to compliment all these guys that did great last night.
Yep.
And I know a lot of these guys aren't going to be starters, they're depth pieces or whatever, but man, it's really important for them to get their exposure, whether, they make our team or somewhere else. They're, and they all performed well. So in my eyes, that also says our coaches are doing a good job.
Yeah.
All our assistant coaches are doing a really good job because all our groups looked way better than they did last year. Every single one of them, except for maybe running back. I'll give you that. Okay, we don't have a premier running back like we did with Derrick Henry. But other than that, every other thing across the board was better. And we didn't have half of our stars on the starting defensive line. We didn't have the two starting corners. One of the starting safeties, both the starting safeties, were out, except for Hooker. I think Hooker did play. But everything looked great, and we didn't have half the team that...
Yeah.
Everything looked so good.
It did. And I'll be fair. San Francisco, they were the same way, missing a lot of starters, but you still had quality guys in there. The guy that was on the end that Latham was blocking, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's a second-round draft pick, so that's still quality reps. But yeah, San Francisco, they're kind of in the same boat. I actually heard word today they've actually canceled their joint practices just because they don't think they're going to have enough people, enough healthy people to actually go for that. So yeah, they're not playing starters either, but still quality reps for a lot of depth pieces. And I think you're seeing stuff start to come together. You're seeing a lot more mesh up front. You're seeing some of the stuff that Callahan's trying to implement in this offense. And like you said, we don't have that premier running back like you had Derrick Henry, but I don't know that you really want a guy like that in this system, because this system's going to be about getting guys in space, using their quickness, using their downfield ability. And then, Will Levis, one thing I've seen from him, he's starting to take some checkdowns. He's not going for the big play every single time. He's going through his progressions. He's not scared to do a check down, let the guys get some run after catch. I mean, and that's something I talked about in the offseason, something I wanted to see from him this year. So, yeah, I mean, I think the progression's good. And then something we've been screaming at the top of our lungs for the last few years, like you said, is development. And I think you're finally starting to see a coaching staff that's going to come in and develop these guys for down the road.
That's exactly what I was getting at. Very keen on picking that up. Another thing I want to say really quickly, we did win the time of possession battle, which was a huge thing with Vrabel, which we won, and we didn't play that style of football at all. We played the same style of football that I hope to see throughout the season. I'm sure that's what we'll get. But the first 2 drives resulted in 2 touchdowns. I know we had huge return on the first one, pretty big return on the second one to give us manageable, much better field position on the first one, manageable on the second. But my point is, 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. Again, man, I know it's a preseason game. I'm trying to pump the brakes on myself, but seriously. Now we're going to get into some disappointments, or some guys that were trending down, not doing so well, not doing so hot. Kyle Phillips. Man, before the game even started, dude, you got me angry because you're dropping punts out there in practice. What the?
Yep.
I honestly thought that he was going to get the first chance at a punt, but I think that they decided not to do that based on his pregame warm-ups. I think they stuck Jaquan out there, and I'm glad they did because he had a great return. But
yeah, both the Jacksons definitely trended up for me, finding a spot on this roster, just with their special teams play. That's something I was going to ask you. Do you think the pregame had some, because I mean he was listed as number 1 on the unofficial depth chart. Am I correct? So do you think
Absolutely.
that pregame had something to do? Maybe there was a change right before kickoff that they were like, let's see what we got these other guys. He's not on it today. So still think we're going to see him get some action. But I personally, I definitely think that played a role in putting the Jacksons out there.
Yeah, man, look, there's, people, it's the best way I can say this. As a former coach, it's easy to say that you practice like you play, or you play like you practice. Try to practice hard, play hard. But sometimes that doesn't always translate to the field, and we'll get into that later, but you have to do what you do in practice and translate it to the field. So, I mean, if I'm the head coach and you're doing a great job in practice when nobody's looking at you, but you show up in the stadium lights and all of a sudden you're looking like a deer in the headlights dropping balls, guess what? You ain't starting. I don't care if I had you slated. Nah, you're moved off. And absolutely, I think that had something to do with it.
Well, and it's nothing new with Phillips. I mean, obviously, this is a brand new coaching staff. They're not going to go off preconceived notions, but you have to look at history. And I mean, if this guy has a history of muffin punts, if he has a history of forcing the ball and giving up turnovers, then yeah, I mean, then you see it in a pregame, and I mean that's going to be in the back of your head. So just the consistency with Phillips, it hasn't been there for me. And before this game started, I kind of had him slated as a roster spot. But now seeing what Karis Jackson's doing, what Jaquan Jackson's doing, these guys not only give you depth at the receiver position, but if they can continue to keep that consistency on the return game, Phillips, to me, he's on the outside looking in at this point. I mean, as it stands today, if cuts happen today, I don't see how he has a roster spot.
Well, here's the frustrating part, man. I've watched the game all the way through twice, and I've watched the highlights I don't know how many times. But Karis Jackson, the frustrating thing is Karis Jackson looks great in the return game, looks great in the kickoff. He's a gunner also, does a great job. As far as wide receiver goes, a little bit lacking. I'd like to see a little bit more out of him, especially if someone of his size. And I had a lot of hopes because he's a Bulldog, but anyway, point is, all bias aside, he doesn't do the best job at being a wide receiver. Now, Kyle Phillips, man, he had a great wide receiver numbers as far as the 5th wide receiver. You know what I mean? But yeah, his pregame action kind of kept him out of special teams. So, and that's going to be a big factor in who they keep. So that's the frustrating part, you know. Can you find one of these guys that can actually do a little bit of both? Can Kiaris Jackson bring his wide receiver game up, which I think that's more likely the the
Right.
scenario than Kyle Phillips all of a sudden becoming a guru at the return game. But um, yeah, that's my answer, I guess. Frustrating. I would rather have Kiaris. As far as just Jackson's returning.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, you're talking when you're looking at this receiver room and how many guys you've got, and you know, keep in mind too, there's going to be more opportunities. We've got 2 games left. I think we've kind of seen the bulk of what the starters are going to get this preseason based on Callahan's comments. Looks like he was more apt to play him in this game as more than he was next game. I don't think we're going to see the first team offense have 2 drives like they did in this last one. I could be wrong. I just don't see it happening. So you're going to have guys like Kyle Phillips. You know, he's going to get a chance to return at some point this preseason. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And like I said, you're going to see Jaquan Jackson and Kiaris Jackson. You're going to see them at receiver. So it's really going to be who can grow more, who wants it more. But yeah, right now it's a toss up for me. I'll tell you another disappointing thing, and I might be kind of going out on a limb here, but first drive, Will Levis, just get down. I mean, I get it. I know it's the first drive, the first game of preseason. To me, it's almost becoming a red flag. And I talked about it in the offseason. I'm like, look, I love everything this guy does. I love the energy. I love that going into his rookie year, he was earning his stripes. He wanted to win the team over. This is his team now. And at some point, if he doesn't learn how to get down and not lower a shoulder and take a hit, especially in preseason games like this, it's going to hurt this team as a whole.
All right.
So I know he wanted it, and I get it, and I get the energy, but get down. I mean, there's no point. There's no reason for it.
All right. So this is what if you're playing a slow-mo of that, this is what I think is going through Levis's mind. First of all, he had open receivers.
Yep.
He should have hit the open receivers. That's the very first thing I should say right off the bat. And that was disappointing, I guess, a little bit. They weren't like wide open, but still, he had 2 or 3 that should have been hit. But point is, he takes off running. He sees those 2 guys. He's like, I am athletic enough. I can get to this. You know, then he sees the guys honing in. And I think literally he had that split second thought of, oh shit, this is preseason. I need to not take this hit. And I think he got a little bit. I think he just was like, and stuttered just a little bit. That's the only reason he didn't dive headfirst into the end zone. And that is a red flag to me, Link, because you're right, man. You can't subjugate your body to stuff like that just to get 1 touchdown in 1 game.
Yep.
That's the bigger picture that you got to see. And I was really proud of his progression as a field general. And I know people use that as a bad term, and it's not. But that was one of the decisions that I saw that I was like, I really would just rather see him just fling that thing through the goalpost and say, all right, let's go for another down.
Yep. And hey, look, I'm not the type of person who says though, if it's the 4th quarter against the Texans and you're on the verge of a playoff spot and you're on 2-minute drill and you've got to drive the thing in, but it's preseason. Exactly. And to his credit, in the post-game press conference, he was asked, did you think about jumping? And he said, yeah, I thought about it. So, I mean, I guess that's improvement. He didn't, helicopter through the air, but yeah, I mean, just learn when to go, learn when not to. And that was just a time where I'd rather see that thing chucked in the stands than I would see him lower a shoulder on a linebacker. So
absolutely,
I don't know. We'll see how it works out, but I don't think you're going to see much more in this preseason if I had to guess.
Well, I'm just saying that's the excitement of the game.
It is, yeah.
And we talked a little bit about the O-line. The O-line was actually one of the things I was going to praise today, but J.C. Latham kind of had, I don't know if it was butterflies or whatever, but yeah, he had a couple plays where he was just, he looked like a rookie. Yeah. And I mean, that happens, but in your second year, especially in the quarterback position, you can't make decisions like that, man. You got to think long term. You can't think this game, this score, this drive. Anyway,
Yep.
on to more disappointments, man. I'm gonna kind of blaze through this list because I got a little we got a little sidetracked. Mason Kinsey, man, disappointing just because they targeted him so many times in wide receiver. They wanted to show that he could be that wide receiver, and even against the twos, he could not get separation or fight for the ball. Or I love Mason Kinsey as a person. He is a really cool dude.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
ever get to meet him, but I just don't think he got it, man. And it's just the same with, I hate to say it, but Rashad Weaver, man. I mean, you had a good play with the bat. I love that. But where were you the rest of the game? And you were one of the I can't remember his play time right now. I could look it up on the phone, but I don't want to. But my point is that he was in the upper echelon of playing time. He had plenty of time. He had plenty of plays. He just didn't get it done, man. And
Yeah,
Jabari's small, dude. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Just I was going to kind of build on the Weaver thing for a second. I mean, this is kind of
Yeah.
his time to step up because, with Arden Key facing what could be a 6-game suspension, you would expect that to be the next man up. And
Huge.
for me, these are opportunities that he's got to start taking advantage of. Obviously, Arden Key's still going to get time in the preseason. I think they're going to give him even more time based on the fact, especially if his suspension comes down, because he's still eligible to play in the preseason. So they'll try to keep him warm. But, man, I really thought Weaver was going to come in and take over that spot to be that depth piece and kind of take over those first 6 games. Pending that suspension. But yeah, just like you said, kind of a disappointment there. But I'll let you continue on Jabari because I kind of had some thoughts on that one too.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I'm trying not to knock people, but maybe it's because I live right outside of Knoxville and I got a bunch of UT fans all around me screaming, oh, UT's the best. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But of course, I think that way. I'm a bulldog. But my point is, Jabari Small, man, I was expecting a lot, and I didn't get that. I got bad. And I mean, Tajay Spears didn't have a great night running the ball either, but bruh, you got the most carries, 10.
Mm-hmm.
You only got 18 yards.
Yeah.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'll say, first of all, go Big Orange. They are the best at pretty much everything. But I'll say, too, you've got a lot of talent in that running back room, and I just don't know that he's ready for this level yet. I don't think he expected the type of speed and the hit power of some of these guys in the NFL. And, yeah, I mean, you're at a different level. So I think Haskins and Chestnut have kind of – they're kind of vying for that running back 3 position right now. Jabari's on the outside looking in. Obviously, there's going to be more opportunities, but to me, what that game showed was this coaching staff does see something in him just to even give him those 10 carries. So there's something there, and I think he will grow as a player. I do think he ends up being a practice squad piece. I don't know that I see a spot for him on the initial 53-man roster. But, yeah, I mean, somebody to watch down the line, definitely somebody to watch these next 2 games because he's going to get more opportunities. Yeah, I'm probably a little biased on that as a Tennessee fan. But right now it's Haskins and Chestnut's position to fight for, and neither one of those guys are going to give it up easy.
Yeah, and I tell you, all right, this is the last player I'm gonna harp on because I really expected high hopes from him, especially since he beat out everybody for the starting job. But Gibby, man, whoa, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking Murray was gonna be the inside linebacker that was a pass liability.
Mm-hmm.
It ends up it's Jack Gibbons, man. I mean, 3 different plays, almost back to back. 2 of them were back to back. That he just got straight burn on, man.
Yeah.
And he had no business being in the coverage that he was in because he could not keep up with whoever he was guarding. It looked bad. He only had 11 snaps, too. So, I mean, I didn't get a great showing, but yeah. All right.
Yeah, I got that one and one more. I'll say on the Gibby thing, I don't think he's lost his job yet, and I get into this a little bit more when I talk about who surprised me and who I liked. but Chance Campbell's coming. I mean, I don't think he's lost the job to Chance Campbell yet, but if he continues that level of play and Gibby doesn't figure out a way to step it up, that's going to be a battle we see come down to the start of a regular season. I think both the guys obviously have a spot on the roster as of right now, but man, like I said, we'll get into it more when we talk about the highlights. But Campbell, he's had some injury issues, but if he can stay healthy and continue the level of play he showed, in that game, we're going to see a fight for that one. And then the last one, I'll say just the offense as a whole. 0 for 2 on fourth down, correct? Gotta find a way to get push in short yardage situations. I liked the QB sneaks. I thought that, we saw 2 of those that were successful, but the short yardage run situations, I didn't see any push from the offensive line. Now, they had good blocking schemes. There was one point even on the Pollard, the 24-yard run that he had where they pulled the 2 guards, sent him to the right, kind of broke him to the second level. But then when they got down to those 3rd and 1 to 3 situations, they just couldn't get enough push to run the ball. That's something I need to see change. Latham was getting pushed back. He wasn't getting pushed back into the quarterback or the running back, but he was getting pushed back. Did a good job of anchoring when that happened. But still, as big of a man as he is and as fast as he is, I need to see him push forward. And then the other, to kind of build on that, Radens, I don't know. I know you had your thoughts on it. I'm still not sure at that right guard position. I still think that's the weakest part on this offensive line. And I think we're going to see a battle for that. I mean, Rutledge had a pretty good game, obviously playing with the threes. I don't know. I think he's going to put up a fight for that spot. You heard Callahan mention some offensive linemen who impressed him, and Radens was not on that list. So we'll see what happens, but I don't think that right guard is fully solidified yet for who they want at starter.
I would agree with you on that. I just think that I think Radens fits what they want to do with the offensive line as far as the athletic part and his body build and all that good stuff. So let's talk about some positive stuff. It was an awesome segue. Chance Campbell, man. Oof. MVP of the game. We were just talking about him, but yeah, man, it played 80% of the snaps, and he took every opportunity that was given to him. Mm-hmm. He ended the night with an interception. I mean, he had 9 tackles. He had a sack, pass defended. I mean, dude was everywhere, man. He was everywhere, all over the field, making tackles. You keep playing like that, dude, there's no way you're not going to make this roster. Yep. You might even push for starter like you were talking about. Yep. You might push Gibby out of a starting spot if you keep playing like that. So,
yeah,
and I know you want to talk about it.
No, when we talk about seizing your opportunities and making the most out of what you can get, I mean, that's the definition of what we're talking about. And, I talked about it before the game in the pregame. There's always that one guy who kind of comes out and surprises. And I don't know that he necessarily surprised me because we know that he's capable of this. I mean, we've known that he's a good linebacker. Obviously, he's battled a lot of injury issues. Being on the field and staying healthy, kind of like Treylon Burks, that's kind of been his biggest obstacle to overcome. But when he's on, he's on. So if he can keep showing this consistency through the preseason, if he can stay healthy through training camp, if he can stay healthy through joint practices, because that's physical. These joint practices, I mean, it's not for the weak. So if he can stay healthy and stay consistent, that might be my hot take. I think he might be your starter come week 1.
All right. We'll have to visit that later.
Yeah.
See how that goes. You might be right. I mean, I'll give you credit at least. Hey, that might be, It's not like so far out of the realm of possibility. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
And Radens, I mean, he has not seized his opportunities in the past. He's had opportunities with multiple coaches to show that he is NFL ready, and multiple coaches have said he's not. So, But anyway, we'll move on from that. Another one that hugely impressed me was the returners. I mean, you got to give them love, right? The Jackson brothers, man. They did awesome. Kiaris had 63-yard kickoff return to start things off. That, man, that really got me fired up. I'm not gonna lie. I was off the couch within, I don't know, what was it, like 10 minutes into the game. First possession of the Titans, I was off the couch. So that's fantastic. And then Jaquan, first time he gets the ball, he goes off for 26 yards, I think it was, on a punt return. So huge shout out to the returners doing their jobs. Everybody, and that just means that you had good blocking also, because returners can't do nothing without the blocking scheme. So huge shout out to Colt Anderson on drawing that up. But man, that looked crisp. I love it. What you got on that link? I know
Yeah, I
you
mean
got something.
that's what the NFL wants to see with this new kickoff rule. I mean, that's exactly what it was made for, to make things exciting, to lessen issues, and I mean it basically comes down to one-on-one blocking and your guy being more explosive than the guy trying to tackle him. I mean, that's what this
That's
whole
right.
thing was made for, and yeah, I mean, again, just making the most of your opportunities, and that, like we said, Kiarsi's got to get a little better at the receiver position. But man, when you've got a weapon like that for kick returns and a weapon like Jaquan for punt returns, it's hard not to give those guys a roster spot. So even just a little bit of improvement at the receiver position, and I think these dudes are a lock for sure. Now, like I said, we're going to see other guys. I do think we'll see Kyle Phillips get an opportunity for returns. I think Mason Kinsey's another guy we're going to see get some opportunities. I wouldn't even be surprised to see. I don't know if I like it, but I wouldn't be shocked to see Tajay Spears get at least one opportunity just to see, what you've got in him before the regular season starts. If it comes down to we need depth at receiver more than we need explosiveness on special teams. So we'll see what happens there. But after that first game, tough not to give those guys a nod to say, hey, keep doing what you're doing and you'll make this team.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Got to give a shout out to the special teams. They look great. Uh, did Nick Folk miss one? I
He
think
did.
that's the only okay. That's the only negative you could even say about special teams. Everywhere else they look great.
Yeah, it was a
Uh,
52-yarder that he missed. So I mean, right there,
oh
kind of on the
yeah,
cusp of his range. But yeah, 52-yarder that was missed by Folk.
yeah. Not taking anything away from him. Just saying. So now we'll talk about translation to the field. We were kind of talking about it earlier, but this is the most important part of football. If if you're a coach of any league, it doesn't matter of any size, you can see guys that are just amazing in practice, and you can see it. You can see how fast they are, how hard they hit. But it's about instinct and just being in the moment and things like that, and that's what translates to the field. So you see things in practice, you hope they translate to the field. One dude that stood out to me the most Saturday night was Brownlee Jr., Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Man, we heard about him throughout camp. When we went to go watch the open practice, it was obvious that he was exactly what they said he was. And to see it on TV, in a stadium with people screaming and stuff, it was beautiful because, man, I really hope that goes throughout the season because Brownlee is going to be the steal of the draft
Oh yeah.
if he keeps playing like this. Really happy for that dude. Absolutely, just can't quit gushing about that guy. He's played great. I think he got beat maybe once. One play he got smoked. I think a little bit, and it was just by a step or two, but still.
Yeah, and I'll go out on a limb here. I mean, I will say if it weren't for Snead and Shadobi, I mean, he's probably a starter on this team come week one. I mean, that wouldn't shock me at all. Now, I was actually thinking about it today. Because he was definitely my highlight of the whole game. But I tried to kind of temper it because I'm like, hey, we saw the same thing from guys like Adoree Jackson and Christian Fulton. We saw that
Mm-hmm.
initial, this is what you can be. And then we saw the development kind of fall off, and that to me that has more to do with coaching than it does what the player is themselves. But yeah, he's definitely headed in the right direction. I think he can be an X factor on this defense, and let's keep in mind too, Titans have not had the best luck at keeping corners healthy. So you've already got Snead and Shinobi. They're already kind of limited. They've got them on a regimen, trying their best to keep them healthy. But it only takes one play, and then this dude's seeing quality minutes. So just keep at it. Stay consistent. Keep doing what he's doing, and I think he's going to be a big part of this defense. Maybe not this year. I'll say even hopefully not this year. I don't want to see an injury. I want to see Snead and Wouzier all the way through the season. Same way with McCrary. I want to see him all the way through the season. So I hope we save him for next year. But given the opportunity, I think he can take advantage of it.
Yeah, to be honest, as physical as he plays, we might see him play some nickel as well. Dime package, excuse me, not nickel. That would be great. Anyway, another guy that's been touted throughout practice that we saw do a good job, that impressed us in person, and then you see him on the TV. And to be honest, he was the most exciting quarterback to watch Saturday night. I don't care what anybody says. Malik Willis, man, you got to give props when they're due, man. It's just what you do when you're a good coach, a good person, good father, whatever. You give props when they're due. You see him doing bad, you say, hey, that's not good. You see him doing good, you say, hey, man, that's freaking awesome, dude. And you keep the same enthusiasm about it. Malik Willis, dude, I'm so glad, man, because now you could actually start on an NFL team. I could see that, or damn good backup. I'll give you that. He is definitely a good backup for any team that wants a backup quarterback. So that might be something to look at later on. And he also ripped off a 28-yard run. That was something in the second year that I did not like in his development, was that he almost took that aspect of his game out of it and tried to be this true pocket passer, which just didn't work for him. Doesn't work for him. He's like a 2-3 read guy and then take off. And I thought he did a great job Saturday night. What you got, Lane?
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on that. Just first, the point to him trying to be a true pocket passer, I credit that fully to the coaching staff, to Mike Vrabel's coaching staff. I think they tried to force him to be in this pocket passer because he does have a deep threat. He's got a really big cannon where he can get it down the field, and they tried to make him something he wasn't. And now you've got a coaching staff that has a history with quarterbacks. You've got Callahan, who's been a quarterback's coach. He's worked with Peyton Manning's. He's worked with Derek Carr. The dude's Matt Stafford. He's been around the block with some quarterbacks. So you're finally starting to see that development of what we thought Malik Willis could be. And you just look at his growth from the first season that he came in as a rookie and what he looked like in the preseason there. You saw an uptick in the preseason last year, and now this year he's making the most of his opportunities. And when you look at the quarterback play around the league, when you've got Stetson Bennett out there throwing 4 interceptions, that's a guy who a lot of people would want on their roster, whether it be a backup or a potential starter. There's the quarterback play was not great.
You had to throw the Bulldog under the bus.
You've got Chargers fans begging for Tannehill to come in as their backup at this point. Like it's not great quarterback play throughout the league right now when it comes to the backup situation. So I definitely think that to this point, he's solidified a spot on this roster. I do think right now that they'll keep all 3 quarterbacks. That could change, but the way that he's slinging it, I think he's done enough as it stands today, for sure.
Yeah, I think they keep 3 quarterbacks unless they get a trade for him. That's the only way I see him leaving the Titans this year. To move on, man, I'll be honest with you. I don't know why I don't like this guy. He's never given me a reason not to like him. But something about his gameplay just throws me off. It doesn't work for me. He looks like he's tall and lanky, and he plays like he's short and stout. It's really weird. Hassan Haskins, though, man, we've heard a lot about him doing great in camp. And, I'm one of those people that, you hear a lot of good stuff in camp. But, just like we were talking about translation of the field, he's had good camps before, but it didn't translate to what sure did Saturday. And if he keeps that up, then he's got that RB3 spot locked down, in my opinion. He was already good at catching passes and pass pro. So, if he could get that short yardage game up, then, yeah, man, I think he'll probably get the RB3 spot.
Yep, I definitely think he's the leader right now. I don't put anything past Chestnut and still putting up a fight for that position. Obviously, looked great in the receiving game.
Mhm.
Actually, looked pretty good back there blocking on a few plays. So yeah, I mean, I don't fully put it past Chestnut to still make a push for it. We're going to see both those guys a lot for the rest of this preseason. Don't think you're going to see much of Spears and Pollard anymore. I think it's going to come down to those two and then a little bit of Jabari Small. So I think Hassan Haskins definitely is leading the race right now. But that's going to be something really interesting to watch. Probably what I'm going to be in the pregame, probably what I'm going to be watching for the most is the Chestnut Haskins fight in this next one against the Seahawks.
Yeah, and this week's practice, with them joint practices, like we were
Yep.
just talking about, very physical, very telling. A lot of the things that you get out of this practice will be not just, oh wow, he looked great in
Mhm.
one-on-ones. I don't really care about drills and all that stuff. I want to see what they look like in 7-7, 11-11. Anyway, um, another honorable mention, or some honorable mentions, excuse me. Best catch of the game. Homeboy brought it up earlier. Absolutely was. It was the one that didn't count. Malik Willis put on a rope right to the sideline. Bryce Oliver went up, made the fingertip grab, got both feet down. It was beautiful. And like a 24-yard pass, too. It was really nice. Really, really nice. Then I got taken away by penalty. But it doesn't matter. The point is that you got to see it. And it looked really great. And he also did a bunch of other, I mean, he had some decent catches throughout the game. Bryce Oliver's just one of those guys that kind of just stands out in a group of a bunch of guys. There's a bunch of wide receivers on the Titans right now.
Yep. And I'll say that too. There another guy that I really liked who I thought had a great game was David Martin Robinson. Tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and he had a pass. I think it was a Willis pass to him where again, beautiful pass to the sideline, over the shoulder throw, got it over the defense. He got 1 foot in bounds, couldn't get the second one dragged through. May have been just a little hair late from Willis, but a ball that definitely could have been caught with a little toe tap. So, but again, same way with Stellanos, with David Martin Robinson, um, Bryce Oliver. The biggest battle they're facing right now was just the depth that's already there at those positions. You're so deep at wide receiver. You've basically got a 1A, 1B at tight end. So these are guys that definitely keep an eye out for the rest of the preseason. Probably going to end up, the majority of them probably going to end up on the practice squad, but keep doing your thing and the opportunities will come. So that's their biggest uphill battle right now is just the depth that's already there.
Yeah, definitely. It's just making the team. And the biggest part of that of making this team, I think, is going to be, can you contribute? Not just can you contribute in special teams like in past, but can you actually contribute to help us win games? And I mean, you see it flashes, from everybody, but we want to see consistency. Also, I have to bring up Calvin Ridley. I know it was just one pass, but man, he turned a 9-yard pass into a 22-yard gain. That's what makes him kind of the player that he is. And you got to see some of that acceleration I was talking about. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was just a pretty good look all around. I do have to say Will Levis did look a lot better, taking some check downs.
Yep.
Like I said, the one play where he missed, like I think it was 3 wide receivers that looked like they were breaking open on the touchdown where he took off to try to run it in. But other than that play, I feel like Levis did a pretty darn good job. I don't think any of our quarterbacks had a rating under 80, which you got to love that. You know what I mean? Good quarterback play all the way around and clean pockets for the most part.
Yep.
So you got to give it up to these guys that are. It's almost like they're completely different, but they're the same. Some of the same group of people, and it's exactly what we were talking about: player development. Yeah. So in summary, the Titans did a lot better than I thought they did. Because 7-14, it looked kind of vanilla after the second half. I kind of not was bored, but just kind of was just sitting there watching them go through the motions. But you look at the stat sheet, it's a much different story.
Yep. Yeah, not quite the shootout I kind of anticipated. I did think it'd be a little more high scoring. Josh Dobbs came out and did Josh Dobbs things. Um, he's helicoptering through the air and hitting receivers that shouldn't be open, and he somehow finds them open. But yeah, I mean, all in all, I think it was good. Even the offensive line, I harked on it a little bit, but one thing I did like, and this was kind of a bonus for me, was J.C. Latham after the game giving himself a C. I thought that his play was actually better than a C, but that just shows you that these young guys, they're hungry, they're self-critical, they want to be better, they want to be the best on the field. Just seeing the drive that he has, and guys like Jaquan Jackson, and just making the most of their opportunities, wanting to be out there, wanting to be great, fighting for this roster. It's something that I haven't seen on this Titans team in a while. It's no longer about individual performances. It's about doing what's best for the team. You have a quarterback in Levis that sees that. You've got receivers in Ridley and Hopkins that sees that. Just seeing the interactions they have through training camp and through this preseason game, it's definitely something to look forward to. And man, I think they could be an upset team. I think they could be a shocker come regular season time.
Yeah, it's nice to see. Just basically because all year since we've had all these good signings, you hear everybody who's a Titans hater, pretty much anybody in the AFC South. Oh, well, you look good on paper. On paper, everything looks good. You got good receivers on paper. No, that was on the field, and it looked good. Yep. And that's what got me excited the most. But, we'll see. Like I said, this week is really telling, especially the game after the joint practices, because both teams are, experienced with each other. They know what they're already trying to do, basically. So it's more of a chess match than the checkers match we saw last Saturday. But
yeah, and I'd say keep up this week, just because you're going to see a lot of physicality in joint practices. You've already seen the Seahawks, DK Metcalf. He's already had altercations with some other guys. And this Titans team, we've seen guys like Big Jeff. They're not going to back down. So I expect some fireworks to go off at some point during these joint practices. I mean, come Wednesday, it's going to be back in the 90s. They're not starting these joint practices till 10, 11 o'clock. It's going to be hot. Tempers are going to be high. And, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see what we've seen through these other joint practices. You're going to see some fights. You're going to see some arguments. You're going to see some battles. So it's definitely going to be an interesting week of Titans training camp this week.
You mean fights in NFL practices?
Yeah.
What? No. All right, sorry. I have to do that just because I'm a really cynical person and I'm still trying to win my argument with Jeffrey Simmons. But I've been having arguments with people on that for like a week now, and I think I've pretty much fortified that I've lost that argument. But I'm still fighting the good fight, man. So anyway, that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. Now we got some football to actually talk about next Saturday. Obviously, Friday, we want you to tune in. And then after that, I think we're going to tweak things a little bit and start doing Thursday nights instead of Friday nights, just to make it a little bit, I think it'll flow a little bit better. But anyway, more on that next week. If you rode with us this whole time, we appreciate it. If you could go like us and subscribe to us on YouTube, that's what helps us the most. And we thank you for staying with us all night tonight. Lynx, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, just happy to be back to football. It's good to be back in the flow of things. Good to see the Titans play. Olympics are over. Football's back in action. We got college coming up the end of this month. We got preseason wrapping up here in a couple weeks. I'm going to be doing some roster cut shows. So, yeah, just excited to be back into it. Glad you guys have stayed with us and just continue to do so.
Yes, thank you so much for watching with us again. And until next time, tighten up.